Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name's Ivana Harinkyu if you are new here, and if you're not, thank you for coming back. Today is Tuesday, November the 9th, and in keeping with our football theme of this week that we have formed, I am joined today by our own AL.com columnist, Joseph Goodman, and he is here today to talk about his new book, which is available today. The book is called We Want Bama, A Season of Hope in the Making of Nick Saban's Ultimate Team. And, Joseph, I know that this has been a kind of a book that's been in the making. You've been really excited about it for a while. Today, it is available wherever books are sold. And, I think you look at this title, We Want Bama, the ultimate season, etc. And somebody who hasn't read the book or is maybe not as entrenched as Alabama football culture as I know you are, can say, well, it was a regular season. It was 2020. Why write a book about it? What's the big deal?
Well, that was the biggest, as a journalist, that was the biggest news event of our lives, the pandemic of 2020. As far as college football goes, it was anything but normal. And they played 11 SEC games and won them all. They weren't going to have a season for a while, and then they finally had the season. They modified everything. All these teams, they had players who opted out. I mean, it was anything but a typical college football season. It was one of the most extraordinary, newsworthy college football seasons in the history of the sport. And so it was inspiring to see Alabama come together as a team the way they did and just completely dominate everyone on the field, but then also make some really strong, important messages off the field. And so that's what I wanted to capture in this book, just kind of to honor those guys and to really preserve everything that happened in that crazy year that was 2020, because every single day it was like another major news story after another, one after another after another. And, after a while, it just seems like our minds went completely numb with all the news we were being inundated with. And so I really went about, forming a narrative to include as much of 2020 off the field as possible and weave that into a story about this football team that Nick Saban just said flatly, this was my best team, maybe not the most talented, but as far as guys who came together, this was my ultimate team. And that means a lot because he's the greatest coach of all time.
Well, I like what you said a minute ago of saying, look, at a point we get numb to all of the news. And even those of us who are here covering it, it's exhausting after a while with something new every single day. And as you said, at a point, kind of the shock wears off of it and you're just so numb to it and you say, oh, of course, there's this new horrible thing happening. That's just the way it's going lately. So I think that the 2020 football season really gave a lot of people that kind of escape that they needed from reality, right? That just moment of normalcy, that just moment to turn on the TV and not have to worry about what was going on outside, what was going on with the pandemic, what was going on in the world of social justice. It just was a moment to escape a little bit. So I think that team was able to bring that just kind of normalcy to people. But also you mentioned off the field. So let's talk a little bit about that. What we saw on TV was not the only thing that this 2020 Nick Saban team was focused on.
That's right. This team maybe it was the best team of all time. That's a sports conversation to be had, and people love having that conversation every year, But absolutely, this is one of the most important college football teams of all time. And the reason that came to be happened before the season even started, when they marched to the schoolhouse door and stood up for social and racial injustice on the same steps, that Governor Wallace desecrated. And so that was a strong statement by this team. And once they did that, and once they came together, that really galvanized them as a group, and they formed this brotherhood, and they were not going to lose a football game after that. They wanted that message that they made before the season even started to stand the test of time. And they knew that the way that they had to do that was to go out and win every single game in this unprecedented season that was 2020. They played 10 regular season SEC games. Okay. And for people who aren't sports fans, they only play 8 every year. And so to have those extra games and then to beat Florida in the SEC championship game, and then just to go to the college football playoff and completely dominate the teams Notre Dame and Ohio State that they played in the college football playoff, just sent the message that this was one of the most important teams in college football, and they wanted to make it last.
Well, and you mentioned that march that the team made from the football facilities to the schoolhouse door, where again Governor George Wallace once stood and said that things would continue to be segregated. This team made that march, and I have 2 points on that. Number one, often we think of our college football players, and I think we're all guilty of it, as being on a pedestal. And it's not just being kids. They are between the ages usually of 18 to 22, 23, young men, and in other sports, just young men and women. And we forget sometimes that not only are they dealing with sports, they're dealing with the rest of their lives. And they're dealing also with things that young people deal with every day, every person deals with. So this was a moment that you could take sports out of it and let these people be people, not necessarily just be players and be people on the field that we wear their names on our jersey, right? But something interesting with that as well was that Nick Saban added to that march. He is a person, on the other hand, who is on a pedestal. He does have this very high paying, notable public figure position. And he made the decision to stand with his team when they made that statement.
So, what's really fascinating is that sports were literally taken away from them. Okay. And in March of 2020, everyone in America went to their homes, and that included football players all over the country. And so you had these players go home, and they were separated from their teammates physically, and everyone just watched TV. You had time to think. And so that really impacted what happened when these kids came back on campus that summer. They were very involved in what was going on in America at the time. And for football players, that's not always the case, because there's only so many hours in the day, and they have to train, they have to go to school, and there's just not all this other time to really take everything in and absorb what's going on in society. But due to the COVID-19, everyone was forced to pay attention to what was going on in the world. Everyone stopped and looked, and that included, athletes. And to your point about Nick Saban is such an incredible leader, because he let the players, he really distanced himself from it, and he let them form their own ideas and decide what they wanted to do, and it all happened very organically. And it was the players that went to Saban and asked him to march. It wasn't like Saban thrust himself upon this moment or anything. Really, he did it. He did it not reluctantly, but he just did it because he loved his team so much. And people also have to remember, and this is written in the book, Nick Saban has been involved in off the field social justice moments since he was in college, and it wasn't by choice. He was a freshman at Kent State when they had the shooting, and he was there, and he was in class with people who were shot and killed by the Ohio State National Guard. So flashpoint moments like this are not unfamiliar to Nick Saban, and he wanted to be standing in the front with his team to be with them, but also to shield them maybe from something that might have happened and from the world outside. So, Nick Saban loves his players at the end of the day. That is absolutely what he is about. And, it really showed, because he let them, really mature and think for themselves when they really needed to, and what was going on in America at the time. And credit to him for that. And just from the simple fact of, like, how do you want to create an incredible team at this moment? Well, that brought all those guys, nothing else could, and they formed that chemistry early on, and then they just used that momentum and that motivation to just go and beat the crap out of everybody.
Now, this was a book about the 2020 season. I know that it was inspiring to you. You decided to write this book. So tell us a little bit about the moment you decided, look, this is what I need to tell. This story is what I need to tell. I need to write a book about this. And tell us a little bit about your process there.
Okay, yeah. So I was actually gathering string and reporting and working on a book before 2020 happened, and uh, I was thinking that maybe I was gonna write a book, but then it happened, and I scrapped everything. Okay, I was like, I have to write about this. I don't care if it's a crazy deadline, and I have to turn this around. Like, I owe it to to history and to the state of Alabama to do this story justice. And I felt a really strong duty, and I was inspired by this team to do that. So, uh, you know, it was a really tight deadline, but I'm really proud of the book. And I and I think it's going to speak to a larger audience than just a sports audience because of the content of the book. But sports fans, if you're a college football fan, like, you're going to absolutely love this book.
Well, and that's another thing I was going to ask you. Do you have to be an Alabama fan to read this book? Do you have to be a native of Alabama to read this book?
No, 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 absolutely not. It's for Alabama fans, obviously, but it's for college football fans in general, and it is also for people who want to understand the phenomenon from outside the state that is the University of Alabama football and how it became to be this larger than life, meme, in our current vernacular. Um, so anybody, yeah, the book is it far transcends sports, and if you like damn good books, then you're gonna like this book.
What was your favorite part of either writing the book, or what is your favorite part in the book? Tell us something that just you really enjoyed about this.
All right. I mean, I was frightened as hell to write a book. Okay, like when it came down to it, like the sense of the fear of failure was almost debilitating. But once I got past that, and I wrote the book that I knew needed to be written. Okay, not the book that's going to make everybody happy. Okay, but the book that I thought absolutely needed to be written in honor of these players and what they did. Then it became really easy, and I flowed through the manuscript. I mean, like this, and I just had loved the process of writing this book. But the coolest thing, okay, was when I turned in the manuscript, my first draft, and the editor, he had no idea what the book was going to be about. Bless his heart. And he's just this dude in New York, and he calls me up and he's like, "Man, I did not expect this. I didn't know. Like, this is going to be an amazing book." And so I had him, and I was like, "Okay, now I want to throw this idea at you, okay? And just tell me if it's stupid, but I'd like to have a map in the book." And he was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, like a map. Like, I want my own map of Alabama in the book. And he was like, "Joe, do you mean you want like a map of Middle Earth, but of Alabama?" And I was like, "Yes, that is exactly what I mean. I want the Middle Earth of Alabama map in my book." So if you buy the book and you open it to chapter 1, on the opposite page right there, you will see my map with very specific Alabama things. I mean, this is absolutely like a love letter to the state of Alabama. So that's my favorite thing about the book.
Well, you've obviously got to print that map off and hang it on your wall if it's not already.
Yeah,
You
great.
should be headed to Kinko's today.
That's a great idea. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, something too I wanted to ask you. I know reviews have been flowing in. Today is the first day the book is available wherever you like to buy your books, but you've already gotten some feedback, some great reviews coming in. So, what has been the review that you have been most kind of struck by, the one that has meant the most to you?
Oh man. You know, when John Archibald read the book and he said he loved it so much, I mean, that just reached inside and like squeezed my heart so bad because he's been like such a friend and mentor to me. And just being a Birmingham native, growing up reading this extraordinary columnist that is such a blessing to this state. And he helped me out through this process of writing this book and gave me confidence. And for him to finally read it and say how much he loved it, like, that really, really, I mean, I can't tell you how much that meant to me. So, our man.
Our own John Archibald Pulitzer Prize winning columnist, we should add there. Now, tell us also, have you had any feedback from the 2020 team?
No, I mean, these guys are all in the NFL. They're playing football right now.
They have not gotten their time to read, but surely when their season's over, they will.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, guys on the team are going to really want to have this book to keep, and and definitely like as a keepsake, and remember what they did on the football field. Absolutely. I mean, this book is a book for them to be proud of.
Who was your favorite person on the 2020 Alabama team?
Oh my God, man. The guys on that team, that's the thing about that team. You know, they had so many incredible players, but really what they had were just incredible guys that were great leaders. And to be able to just do what they did, it took more than just talent. Like, you just can't do what they did but with talented players. So the personalities all came together for that team. Guys like Alex Leatherwood, who wrote the amazing essay in the summer of 2020, which is featured prominently in the book. Understated leaders like Mac Jones, who no one thought was going to be as good as he was. Like, people forget that now because he's like doing the thing with the Patriots. But before 2020, there were so many people who like wanted Bryce Young to start over Mac Jones. And Mac Jones didn't say one thing. He just believed in himself. This is a kid who like came in the same recruiting class with Tua Tagovailoa, had Jalen Hurts ahead of him on the depth chart, didn't transfer, waited his and got better, studied. Like, that's the heart and soul of this team. Guys who were patient and really believed in themselves and really loved each other. Devontae Smith, I mean, what an incredible kid. He took a second role or even a third role his entire career at Alabama. And even going into his final season, he wasn't the number one option. It was Jalen Waddle who started the season wide receiver number one. Jalen Waddle went down. Devontae Smith, who had been there plugging along all the time, takes over at receiver and becomes the Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, Najee Harris, like, this kid is such a beautiful person. He came from Northern California, and he just loved everything about playing for this team. And that's the thing about this team, that in 2020 they came from all over America to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and they really are like the face of what America is going to become, because there were so many different people from so many walks of life represented on this team, and they all came together to form something like larger than themselves for Alabama in the state of Alabama. It's such a cool thing.
There's really nothing we can say to beat that, what you just said. These people who came from all corners of America to Tuscaloosa to spark a change, both here in Alabama and across the nation. So, Joseph, I know that this is a big day for you. You have an event tonight, I believe, at Thank You Books from 6 to 8. You're going to be signing some books there, and that is in Crestwood for people that are local to the Birmingham area. If you're not local to the Birmingham area, how can you buy We Want Bama?
You can go to Amazon. You can go to bookshop.org. You can go to any bookstore and buy the book. You can call your local independent bookstore and get them to order it. That would probably be the best thing to do. But yeah, absolutely. Please check it out and tell me what you think about it.
We will leave all of that information here in the comments. If you want to get your hands on a copy of We Want Bama, A Season of Hope in the Making of Nick Saban's Ultimate Team. Joseph, thank you so much for this conversation today. I know it's a big day for you at launch day, so we will let you go. Everybody watching, thank you so much. Joe, good luck tonight, and we will see all of you tomorrow.
Thank you.